You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. On this episode, I got the mad scientist Elisa with me, and we will be covering the Red Heifer. I know that's been kind of like going around, and people all wondering if she got killed yet, because it could happen anyway, any day from the 22nd for 50 days after. But I also know it seemed to be like a thing people were wondering about prior, because they were talking about it before the 22nd. I thought it was a really interesting topic. Funny enough, like, I did want to kind of cover it originally, but like, when you get into certain religious shit, it is sometimes like, I think people will think they understand religion so much that they're going to run off of a story that they probably don't understand to begin with to explain what's going on with the Red Heifer. So it wasn't something that I really wanted to try to get into in that aspect. And honestly, it wasn't really a topic that I was interested again, but I wasn't thinking about covering it because, like, there's a lot of shows that have already jumped on it. You know what I'm saying? And unless, like, I feel like unless I come out with something even more outlandish and ridiculous as them, it just won't be considered good. It won't be listened to. I hate to say it, but that's how it goes. You have a couple of people out there who've never actually practiced anything that somehow have become authorities on occultism, and it can make a real occultist sound silly. So I wasn't going to really waste my time, but just like the Jordan Maxwell episode, that ended up having what was his? Was that right? Robert. I'm thinking Jordan. Robert Maxwell.
Jordan.
Yeah, just like just like the Robert Maxwell episode. That was something that Lisa was going to make a Twitter post about, and then I was like, well, what are we tweeting about here? And when she started to tell me, I was like, oh, maybe we should do an episode on this Maxwell thing. And a couple of weeks ago, she had mentioned something that she was going to do a post on the Red Heifer, and I was like, oh, explain it. What were you going to say? And I was like, oh, this is different. I like this. This is actually very interesting. It's a different way to look at it. And I said, how about we try to do an episode? And she put out right away, how Lisa is, she jumped on the topic and had a document made probably within 5 minutes and started working on it. But I think about a week or so into it, she's like, listen, I don't know if I can actually do a whole episode. And I was like, well, let me take a look at it. I haven't actually really looked at this stuff. And I started adding some gematria. And then for people who have podcasts, you know how it is. A couple of days later, you might not even be thinking about the topic. And all of a sudden something pops in your head and you find yourself going down 2 new rabbit holes that you just couldn't find before. Yeah. So now when I think we have plenty enough to make a very interesting episode and different way to look at it, we got the Red Heifer. And again, this was Lisa's idea. I do like to give her the credit, just like the Maxwell series that we did. I guess, not to put you on the spot, Lisa, but like, what was it really that started getting you going with this Red Heifer thing? And again, like, the reason why I'm asking is because, like, when you came to me with it, it didn't seem, again, it wasn't so much on the religious part of it. It was more on weird things, I think.
Yeah. So for me, I had heard about the search for the Red Heifer a while back, and they were talking about red heifers, right? And how they were looking. And I'm thinking, we have red heifers here in Texas all over the place. They're called Santa Gertrudis breed, or they're called Red Angus. What are they looking for? Just come pick one up in Texas. You know what I mean? Like, what's the big deal?
Is that where the Angus beef comes from?
Yeah, it's one of them. You have Black Angus and Red Angus.
Oh, so the Black Angus we get in the store is not okay. Wow.
Yeah, so the red Angus comes from the Aberdeen cattle line, and that's out of Vikings bringing it into.
Isn't that like somebody's name in? Fuck.
Oh man.
What was that movie with the Mockingbird chick?
How
am I forgetting
Hunter
this?
Hunter Games.
Oh my God, how the hell did I forget that?
Yeah.
God, you can tell I'm getting old now.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't Aberdeen someone's name in that?
I think so.
Oh, interesting.
I don't remember. I read the books, but I don't remember.
I read them in jail, actually.
Nice.
You'll find yourself reading the silliest of shit to waste your time in that.
Yeah. So where I'm from, South Texas, there is Hunger Games, yes. where I'm from, I grew up near a ranch that is known for developing the breed, Santa Gertrudis breed, and they're known for their red coat color. And so to me, it was kind of like, what are they talking about? This is just ridiculous. Why were they talking about red? And I was like, they're genetically modifying this to fit their narrative. Oh my God, I have to make a Twitter post about this. So that was the whole thing. And I was going to go into the whole genetics of it all and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, let me get started on the stuff I was going to say. So that's kind of what the impetus was for me with the Red Heifer, and then some other, because I know where the breed lines come from. And so it almost maps it, and then where they took the heifers to be raised. And that was another angle as well. So if you don't mind, I'm going to get into it. So the topic of the Red Heifer obviously has been inserted into our societal discussion. I mean, we're all talking about it. We're all tweeting about it. We're all looking, did they kill her? Did they kill her? Did they not? And so it's pretty much injected into the zeitgeist of the current events, if you will, right? And so I thought that we could offer some insight into the topic, offer a different angle that we could look into regarding the Red Heifer and discussing what it means to the three different Abrahamic religions: occult symbolism, some gematria, thanks to you, and some of the science behind Red Heifer, genetics, cloning, ranches, landowners, and politics, kind of all surrounding that. So briefly, and we'll get into a little bit more later, the storyline of the Red Heifer, it's a prophecy that surrounds the Red Heifer, and it feels like it's global, or like the world is watching. And this is potentially probably because this is one of the few prophecies where it has a direct impact on all three of the Abrahamic religions: Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And those are the top three largest of the world's religions. So if you think about the world population as a whole, it's 32% are Christians, 25% are Muslims, and 2% are Jews. So that's roughly about 60%. So that's over half of the world's population. So this is kind of affecting a large majority of people. It's on their radar. So all three of these religions adhere to this prophecy, generally believe that when the Red Heifer is sacrificed, it's going to usher in the eschaton, or the end of days, or the end of the world, and kick off the second coming of Jesus for the Christians, the coming of the long-awaited Messiah for the Jews, and the potential destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or the Dome Rock Shrine for the Muslims, because that mosque sits right on top of where the Jews want to build the third temple. So at its core, it kind of signals the significant and irreversible transformation of the world as we know it. The Red Heifer gets sacrificed, and it pretty much kicks off all of these events for these three major belief systems. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth into that storyline here in a little bit, but I wanted to kind of do a quick history recap to kind of provide a little bit of setting the stage of where this prophecy is going to take place, right? Let me go into, I'm going to pull up the slides. It's my little Red Heifer. Okay, so the backdrop of what we're talking about. So sacrificing the Red Heifer is tied to the rebuilding of the third temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. So if there's a third temple, that means there was two before that, right? So the first temple, it was the Temple of Solomon, which was built in 957 BC and destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple, which is considered Herod's temple, is very symbolic to Christians because this was the temple that was present during the time of Christ. The construction of the second temple happened when Persians kind of took over, Babylonians kicked them out under Cyrus the Great and all that. And then it was destroyed. The second temple was destroyed by the Romans during the first Jewish-Roman War. And I think the Jews had rebelled or something. So the Temple Mount is found on the mountainous region called Moriah. And it's more specifically found on the Mount Moriah, which is the Temple Mount. So for the Jews, the mountainous region of Moriah is symbolic because it's described in the book of Genesis that Mount Moriah is the site where the binding and near sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham was said to have taken place. And this is detailed in book of Chronicles, the second book of Chronicles. So in Genesis, it talks about, how take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go into the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain, I will show you. And this happened during the reign of Melchizedek, which was a king of Salem at the time, and he was a priest of El Elyon. Chronicles also goes into describing Mount Moriah in that then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. So this is a second reference to Mount Moriah of being extremely symbolic. And it was the place where the Lord had appeared to his father, which was King David. So just to kind of put into context, Mount Moriah is Solomon's temple, is Temple Mount. So you're trying to see how all these three religions kind of all see that one piece of real estate as being of value to them as a whole. This also is a site of the foundation stone, which sits below the dome of the rock and is said to be the spot where the world was created and expanded out from. And it's also said to be where God gathered the dust to create the first human, Adam. So I don't know if this is like meaning a golem, like, Adam, because he created him out of dust or something. I don't know. But it almost kind of gives that whole reference. So this is the site where the third temple is said to be built. And in Jewish texts, they state that the mount will be the site of the third and final temple, which will be rebuilt with the coming Messiah, right? So various Jewish sects and some Christian Zionists are advocating for all the steps necessary, meaning sacrificing the red heifer, in order to rebuild the temple and bring to pass God's end time and its prophetic plans for Israel and the entire world. So now you have the Jewish, the Christian, and then now the Muslims. So for the Muslims, Mount Moriah is the third holiest site in Islam. And it's the site where the binding and the near sacrifice of Abraham's first and only son was said to have taken place. So kind of a little bit of back history in that Abraham's first son was Ishmael, who is regarded as a prophet and the ancestor to Islam and all that. And he was born to Abraham and Hagar. And Hagar was a daughter of King of Egypt who was gifted to Abraham and his wife Sarah because they were childless. And so it was a gift from the King of Egypt saying, you're childless, here, have my daughter, have a child through her, and you can now pass on, what is yours to an heir. I think in the Bible, they refer to her as a slave or like the cleaning lady or something. Like I remember her as being the, like the mistress to the wife or something. But apparently she was like his wife and royalty to Egypt. So for Muslims, the Dome Rock is situated on Mount Moriah, which is the oldest surviving Islamic architecture and has some of the oldest surviving inscriptions as well. And it's also the site where it's said that Prophet Muhammad is said to have traveled with the angel Jibril or Gabriel and ascended into heaven. And so this is kind of existential for the Muslims, right? This is also something of, it means as much to me, it means as much to them as it does to the Jews, right? So hence makes sense why they're both fighting.
Did Gabriel also give Muhammad the Quran? Was that the angel that was involved in that too?
I don't know. But I know it was an angel.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not, maybe the chat knows. I should know that.
One thing that I do find is interesting, not to, but like Israfel would be Raphael's name when you switch over to Muslim. And Crowley does have Libra Israfel, which is basically an invocation for Thoth. I just find that, I don't know, I found that interesting. Wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, no,
he was acknowledging Muslim terminology.
Yeah.
But yet in some ways it's like looking at his stuff, I don't think you wouldn't think so. But I do think, I'm just going back to, I do think some of the secrets of secrets are among that type of occultism. Right.
Yeah, so the sacrificing of the heifers basically means to the Muslims that this allows the Jews, I guess, permission or the right of way to basically build their third temple over the 1,000-year-old Al-Aqsa Mosque. So it's one of those things, not taking sides here because, I got no skin in the game on this one. But for Christians, and you kind of, they're in the backdrop. I think to me, I grew up hearing about Red Heifer and prophecy and revelation, all that other stuff. But I think for Christians, the Temple Mount was the site of King Herod's temple. And it's pretty much some of the most significant events that happened for Jesus happened in the Second Temple. I think it's where he got sentenced, where he had the conversation with Herod, some of these quotes or dialogue between him and King Herod. I remember people reciting and portraying. Is where he gets sentenced to be crucified. And at some point, I think during the 4th century, Christian worship in Jerusalem for this specific site kind of transferred over to a church, the Holy Sepulchre. And it's the site of Jesus' crucifixion and eventual resurrection and the empty tomb and stuff like that. So they kind of just like moved over. So it's not that it's not existential for the Christians. I think they prioritize another piece of land more so than that one, as compared to the Jews and Muslims. Not to say that Christians don't find it holy. I'm just saying that compared to Jews and Muslims, they want it more. So it is largely believed that the construction of the Third Temple will occur before or signal the second coming of Jesus. And I remember that growing up, how you would hear this all the time. And it kind of falls in line with Christian dispensationalism, and it adheres to the literal interpretations of the Bible, where the rapture of the church is said to happen before the second coming of Christ, and then obviously before the Great Tribulations. A side note of this is,
you know what I think is just really interesting that you were, I guess maybe because you mentioned Christians right now. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny how like you will get like Christians or Catholics who are like, oh, I told you, like, you know, we're getting to the end. You see what's going on over there. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because of another religion doing something. Like you're actually acknowledging Judaism. Yeah. Right. It's just very, I don't know. It's just funny. Again, like I think I had said something last night, you know, when it comes to like religion and true crime, I think is very much in the same ballpark where, like we'll take the Idaho 4 as an example. That case gives you enough evidence or enough details to keep you very, very intrigued. But then there's not much answers around it, really, to where it gives you so much room to create your own fantasies. So this story fits what you wanted to say.
Well, and when we get into the whole cloning and the artificial insemination and the genetic manipulation of cows, they are manipulating it because they're not born naturally, you know,
that's
like
even
in the
another
wild,
thing.
all of a sudden there's an albino all of a sudden among, you know, a herd of moose. That's not what's happening here. That's another thing that I think is weird too. It's like people who acknowledge this, it's like this thing was genetically manipulated to even be a red heifer.
Like,
I mean, there are red heifers.
It's so, I don't know. It's just funny how certain things you have to either ignore or look at a different way to make sense of certain stuff.
I think so. So kind of a side note, the Knights Templar believe that the Dome Rock that's there right now was the site of Solomon's Temple. So they also believed in this, you know, Solomon's Temple, First Temple ideology. And they set up their headquarters at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, adjacent to the dome for much of the 12th century. And we'll talk a little bit about the Knights Templar. That's why I brought them up here right now. And so for the Christians, the red heifer represents Christ because it sacrifices its blood to the children of Israel, and so that they can enter into the Holy of Holies or the presence of God, because they're still waiting for their Messiah. They're still waiting for that allowment back into with God. Like what was supposed was with Jesus is that he opened the gates and we can now enter into heaven when we die and be one with God. But I think before that, you know, because of original sin, we were not allowed. This is what the belief was, or at least that was taught to me. And so largely this is kind of what the Jews kind of have. They're waiting for their Messiah to allow that also to occur for them. So by Christian Zionists helping find this heifer, they feel, well, we're helping Jews also usher in the Messiah. But I feel like it's astroturfed. I don't know why, but I do. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just do. So by and large, growing up Catholic, the the prophecy of the red heifer, it was pretty much outlined that it basically everything's being said in the book of Revelation was going to start to happen, whether it was forced or natural. But basically, this is pretty much, we're in pregame. That's kind of how I feel. Yeah, on that one. So a little bit, and I'll stop talking here in a little bit more, just kind of reiterate Mount Moriah, Solomon Temple's Temple Mount. The first time that we see the phrase red heifer is in Numbers 19, verse 3. And it says the red heifer is first mentioned when God tells Moses and Aaron, this is a ritual law that God has commanded. Instruct the Israelite people to bring you a red heifer without blemish, in which there is no defect, which no yoke has been laid. So according to the Old Testament, 2 Jewish temples, first and second, that stood where the Aqsa Mosque is today, are considered, back then they were considered ritually pure, including the instruments, the garments, the people that were serving, people that were worshiping there. But with the building of this mosque, now they consider that space to not be pure. So by doing the construction of the third temple, it cannot happen until the compound is purified, meaning they have to get rid of the mosque, and then they have to sacrifice this red heifer, and then the ashes from that red heifer will be used to purify the people, the garments, the instruments, and so forth. And then they can start the building of the actual temple. So this purification ritual, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more towards the end, is accomplished through use of mixture of ashes in with fresh spring water. And I thought it was weird. The spring water is collected by ritually pure children born and raised under strict conditions. I don't know why, but I think children are already pure, but that's just mine.
See, when I had seen that, it did make me think a little bit about the OTO and children. Mm-hmm. Because the childs, even though they're played by adults, there's no children, but that is the role that you're playing. One holds an incense burner and incense, and the other one holds water and salt. And you hand that off to the priestess to use it in priest. So I just find that interesting how that's even children are necessarily being used in that.
Yeah. And I think what they also mean when they say that you're unpure, I think it's because you come in contact with the dead. That's another one that they kind of harp on, that if you come in contact with the dead, then that makes you unpure. Gotcha. So, and then, so just real briefly to break down the phrase unyoked red heifer or without yoke, I'm going to start with the word unyoked. And so unyoked means to disconnect, unlink, liberate, deliver from oppression, without burden, without the yoke on your back. In Greek, yoke means to join or couple together, like you see the cows here, and they're linked together. And to me, at least being around animals a lot, it's also, also carrying a burden also means yoked, but to me, it's also to be with child, to have an offspring, because you have joined in, you have coupled together to bear fruit, to bear a yolk, to bear an egg, so to speak. So that's kind of.
All right, and then I'll go on. One thing I did think was interesting now, I don't know why I didn't catch it when I was reading the notes earlier. This very much also reminds me of the devil card. You know, with the links and the bracelets, the cuffs and the chains. And and just in my opinion, like a lot of the cards do depict it to where it looks like the cuffs are big enough to where you can take them off. So like you can do something like I don't know, you can control the cuffs in a sense, I guess, being on or not. I just I don't know, for some reason that what you explained with that really made me think of the devil card. But another thing with even the yoking, back to things that I have said about the eyes over and over, and I do think even the infinity symbol above the magician's head is symbolizing that, the whole of yoked or unyoking of the eyes, and flight and fight syndrome thing in your eyes. So I just even, again, me going back to thinking that yoked eyes, our unyoked eyes, are important when it comes to magic. I mean, we're using that word again now with the heifer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I just wanted to add that. I do find that interesting.
For sure. One thing about heifers, the actual word heifer means female bovine, and it's important to connotate that it is an animal. It is a female animal that has not yet given birth to a calf or produced offspring.
Yeah. And then when I was like going over this stuff with I think like because of the ages and then some of the numbers, but I started to get very much like Empress or the childlike Empress tarot card ideas for some reason. And that's on the path between Chokmah and Binah, which is Sphere 2 and 3. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, I think so. Sorry, screwing that up now. But it is the fourth tarot card labeled number 3 because the Fool is also 0. Heifer in Hebrew gematria equals 113, which matches Chokmah also, as well as Fish and Gate, which I do find interesting because like in that area of the tree, I do feel like that's like when you're actually crossing the abyss, or like you've opened the gate and the door and you're stepping through now. So like even that symbolism I find interesting. Heifer, Daleth is on that tarot card as well, is on the Empress card, and that also means door. The symbol for Venus and 12 stars are on the card also, and Heifer and Simple matches Michael, Mars, and Falcon. In case I'm just throwing those in there, but I don't know. There was something with this that really started to make me think something to do with like this Empress, especially because of the young age. You know, and it hasn't had sex.
Speaking of young age and hasn't had sex, so at birth, to get into the technicalities of heifer, and I kind of went off. People kept referring them to as cows, and I was like, they're not cows, they're heifers. It's completely, totally different. And the reason for that is because at birth, a female calf is called a heifer calf, and when she becomes pregnant, she is still referred to as a heifer. She's called a bred heifer. And even in the final weeks of her pregnancy, she's called a springing heifer. And it's not until the point that she actually gives birth that the heifer becomes a cow. So you have all these names denoting that she's still a heifer to show that she hasn't given birth. But heifer pretty much means hasn't given birth or hasn't had sex or a virgin, to be brutally honest.
Then I got the idea to check heifer calf. And I found some interesting matches with that. And I think some of the other matches that I will add in later on, you'll see, I think maybe kind of something going on here. Heifer calf in simple gematria is 73, which matches the word sacrifice, Israeli, nation, children, ordinal, Nimrod, Egypt, crown. I found this interesting. Hiram Abiff, because if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure he got it and he got stabbed. I mean, I don't know how they're going to kill the heifer, but I'm assuming like probably with like something like a large knife, unless they're shooting the thing. I don't know. Nineveh, goddess, hermit, and then copper. And I found copper interesting because it is associated with Venus. And again, Venus is on the Empress card. And something that you had told me, copper is used for the color red when describing animal coat color, correct? Mm-hmm. 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 So I found that all kind of a little interesting to add in there.
And I think the baby heifer looks like the Empress in the card.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, when you showed me that you made this slide, I was like, God damn, that's a little weird there.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that I kind of stumbled upon as I was looking more into this was that this is kind of something that's been going on for a while. So there has been a search for these pure red heifers, and we've known that the Jews have been looking for the red heifer, to kind of help usher in the that whole era. But there was a creation of the Temple Institute in 1987, and they started with fundraising efforts. And it's gone into not only searching for the red heifer, but it's also gone into breeding red heifers through in vitro fertilization. And so that's when you know that, okay, not only are they just sending people, sentinels out looking for a red heifer, but they're also investing money in genetics and genetic manipulation, in vitro fertilization, as well as genetic cloning and so forth. And I'll tell you why cloning here in a bit. So this was their flyer that they had out for a while. And now if you go to that website, it gives you a 404 notice. I guess they no longer need it. And then you have the guy who basically helped ship the animals to Israel create an actual website called Stand with Israel Now. And that's where most of the money was generated or donated to sites too. So to kind of give you a little bit of like how it all kind of came together was that, so like in September 2022, well, let me back up. So they were looking for the red heifer, right? And so they had put a call out to all these ranches. Hey, oh, that was the other thing. Let me mention that. Let me go back one. They put out a call to the ranchers and said, add your herd to the hunt. We're looking for red heifers. And in the fine print at the bottom, it says, $15,000 paid for the heifer used at the ceremony in Israel. Top market price paid for all red heifers selected. So they were now paying ranchers to submit their actual red heifers to be looked at, to be evaluated. And if yours got picked, you got money. So it was kind of, I don't know, odd. But
I find this whole starting here going on just very odd. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it wasn't odd already, this subject, but
yeah,
when you start getting into this stuff, it's very interesting, I think.
So 2 of the ranches were selected. There's not a whole lot of information on the second one, but for sure the first one, it's the Urbanowski Ranch, and that is where the Santa Gertrudis breed comes out of. And Urbanowski Ranch is known for being the first facility or first ranch to successfully clone the Santa Gertrudis breed. And so this is the ranch where one or a few of the heifers come out of. So there's evidence that they do cloning. There's evidence that they do in vitro fertilization. And this isn't uncommon in the cattle industry. A lot of cloning, a lot of in vitro fertilization happens. So this isn't like, oh, wow. But the facilities where they're at, and this was one of the facilities where one of the heifers came from. So it would either be a Santa Gertrudis breed or it would be a Red Angus breed, which is the other ranch that was selected. I think it was Triple Creek Ranch out of Rockwell, Texas. And when they selected these heifer calves, it is my understanding from what is being reported that they were sent to this ranch in Glen Rose to be raised by Byron Stinson, who is the guy who basically set up the fundraiser, was raising all these funds to look for the actual red heifers, and then collected all the monies to basically have the heifers shipped over to Israel. And so once they were raised and ready to be shipped, they took a flight. American Airlines, Boeing 777, flight AA-146, and the travel time was 10 hours. And they flew to, I believe, a northern part of Israel near the West Bank, or in the West Bank of northern part. And they are kept in a secure location where I guess they're being taken care of under strict guidelines and what have you. One thing I was going to mention, so these obviously they have been, basically selected since birth. They don't have a blemish. They've never been carried a yoke or given birth or milked or anything like that, worked or anything like that. The one thing that I noticed with Glen Rose is that the town Glen Rose, where these heifers were eventually raised before they were shipped over, is that it lies at 32.23 degrees north. And I thought that was a neat palindrome, right, of 322, right? Because we go into later how some of these have, Mason connections. But Glen Rose was in the path of totality. So that was also another weird thing, that they were raised in a town in Texas that was going to be in the path of totality for the eclipse. Glen Rose is kind of a very peculiar angle because it was named after a place in Scotland, as the legend goes. It was either named after Glen Rosa, which is an Isle of Arran, or it was named what's it called? Glen Rose, after the Rosling Glen in Scotland. And so if people are familiar with conspiracy, they know that Rosling Glen is the site of the Rosslyn Chapel. And Rosslyn Chapel is basically the chapel that sits on the heart of the Rose Line, well-known Scottish meridian. And it has numerous Masonic gravestones because the Knights Templar, majority of them were buried there. And it has links to basically the Holy Grail and Freemasonry. So the Holy Grail, again, was sangreal, royal blood. And here we go with the whole blood sacrifice, royal blood, and so forth. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm dead with what Pete Thomas
No,
said.
you're good.
The eclipsed cow jumped over the moon. Jesus. Do you want me to go into my stuff? Did I screw you up?
Yeah. No, you're good.
Okay.
You're next.
All right. I guess you'll probably know some of these answers, but I want to do some quick trivia since we're live.
Okay.
I know, you can answer this one if somebody else doesn't get it on the live, so people pay attention. Where is most of Aleister Crowley's handwritten documents? In what state are they being held in the library?
Texas.
Yes. All right.
Oh,
yes.
did you want me to answer?
Well, I was going to let you to
live
answer if nobody got it in the chat because I know you knew that answer. So, all right.
Okay.
She already answered it for you all. That's
Sorry.
in Texas. Who wrote the book Liber 777? Does anybody happen to know that? Real quick, I'll give you a shout out if you get the answer right inside the chat. Who wrote Liber 777? Also, who had a girl named Rose that was a well-known occultist at one point? Does anybody know? Crowley, yes. Thank you, Glitched. OTR. Crowley. He wrote Liber 77. Most of his handwritten stuff in one collection is all in Texas. And he also had a girl named Rose. And he also owned a house on Loch Ness in Scotland. Mm-hmm. And who else has an interest in Texas? Elon Musk, and 10 equals X. Mm-hmm. And there's some other number play, I think, that points out 10 and X later on that I'll get to. Mm-hmm. I find that interesting, especially for some of the people in the chat, man. Again, you have Rose, you have 777, and you have a lot of Crowley stuff going on here. Pay attention. Glen Rose in Hebrew gematria equals 297, which matches heart chakra. I found that interesting because Hathor is associated with the heart chakra. A little fun fact for some of you Pink Floyd fans out there. I was actually thinking of cropping out one of the cows from Pink Floyd's Adam Hart Mother and just like throwing it into the thumbnail for the show, kind of as a joke, but I was like, nobody's going to probably know that's what it's from, and it's just going to look silly. But I was thinking about adding that in there, and I find that album interesting. It's called Adam Hart Mother. If you were to change the O to a U, you'd get Atum, and his mother was Hathor, and she does fall on the heart chakra. So I always found that album in that cow, and even the black and white, and then the green, which green goes with Hathor if you're looking at her on the Venus side of the tree. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I always thought that name and the album cover was very occult. Glen Rose in simple gematria equals 95, which matches Scorpio, Sirius, pineal gland, pentagram, also matches Empress and Nightmare. Glen in simple gematria equals 38, which matches death, gold, fire, eggs, and Apep. Rose in simple gematria equals 57 and matches golden, peaches, Jews, and magician. And Scotland in simple gematria equals 88. Find that interesting. The Boleskine house, the house Crowley owned, where he attempted the Abramelin ritual. Fun fact, Ezoff equals house, Hermes, and Mar-a-Lago with the value of 68 in English. And Beth is on the magician card, which means house. So there was some weird stuff I wanted to just throw in there.
That's really, really good. I like that.
Thank you.
So with the Urbanowski Ranch, the genetics for these heifers were acquired through this facility. And so, like I said earlier, they're basically the first ranch to successfully clone a Santa Gertrudis breed. And the reason I bring up Santa Gertrudis is because they are a full red coat-colored breed, along with Red Angus. But I think Red Angus, I don't know what the percentage is, but I know there is some Black Angus in them because they were crossed back in the day in England and Scotland when the Vikings come. No. What? No.
You know how they say a lot of Sicilians probably have black in them? Because of the war.
Hilarious. I didn't even catch that.
It was like, where these cows come from Sicily? got some Black Angus in them. I'm fucked up. It's the vape. It's the vape.
Yeah. But and so with the actual Santa Gertrudis, and I'll go into it here in a little bit. This actual facility has the ability to clone a Santa Gertrudis breed animal, and they offer sexed semen. So if you wanted a specific genetics and a specific gender, you could do this at this facility. And they also have online production sale as well. So if you wanted that, if you were interested in that as well.
You remember, it's interesting last night when I was on Cult of Conspiracy. Great guys, funny as hell, and both very interesting dudes. It's a lot like when me and Teresa podcast. They look at things a little bit differently, but somehow sometimes come down to like the same thing, or they just they do get along well with different perspectives. And they had me and Teresa on last night. We covered one of the apparitions, and I had mentioned something about my clothes, how sometimes I will specifically wear certain things. And I even said last night that I have like a True Religion. I haven't wore the True Religion shirt in a while, and it was fucking out the outlets. It wasn't no expensive crazy shirt. It was probably $25. But like also even the Under Armour, again, that use thing, I do think very much just, I mean, honestly, that looks very much like a Zodiac too, but their ranch logo, I do think there's something up with like the U in a sense. I think that could represent the cup, magnet, the polar, magnetic opposites, Jacob's ladder in a sense. But I do think that U is very occult. Uterus. Yeah, I mean, even the way it's drawn like that. I mean, with the sides coming out, that can lead to other things. I mean, it even looks like the shit that you put on them when you're making them, pull something. Yeah. And it's just very interesting.
Yeah. It is interesting. Let me see. So the Santa Gertrudis breed itself is going to be a mix between Zebu and European cattle, and it's pretty strict. And so the reason I bring this up is because you don't have a lot of adulteration of the actual breed, in that you're going to get a better bang for your buck in terms of red coat color. I'm not saying the Red Angus isn't, but I could see them going with Santa Gertrudis, and plus they could control it because of all of the breeding that is afforded to them. And it was developed in the King Ranch. I don't know if King means anything to anybody, but it was developed in the King Ranch. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, and it was developed on a Spanish-owned estate here in Texas, South Texas, close to me. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because we even have had that Rex. Was it a comet or something? I don't know. I know my boy Headless has actually been pretty big on paying attention to that, telling me about it. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff with Rex and King. I guess I'm next, right? Sorry, I got lost there. Your breast. How do you say that place again? That ranch? Urbanowski Ranch in simple gematria equals 170, which matches World War III in January 6th. I just figured I'd throw that in there. And also in simple gematria, it equals. I'm sorry. Your Urbanowski by itself in simple gematria equals 126, which matches Wormwood, king of Israel. A ranch in Hebrew gematria equals 132, which equals Cancer, NASA, Mott, Peacock, and the egg. I kind of included Cancer because like that seems to be a word going around like health-wise now. You know, we went from COVID, which was a C, now over to Cancer.
Yeah.
Which is why I keep telling people look into prions. Ranch in simple, because I do really believe that we're going to hear about that eventually, over and over and over again. Ranch in simple gematria equals 44, which equals Cancer as well. Set, Magic, Ladder, Chesed, and Boaz. That was just my breakdown of those words. Thank you.
So because this breed has the taurine intestine breed, to me, when I heard taurine, I thought of Taurus. I thought of Taurid Field. I thought of the Jewish alphabet and how that's kind of tying into how all this is playing. And so, that's kind of where I was thinking. And then with the cloning and the actual putting together development. Yeah.
And then I have ran some numbers again. I do find, I mean, Santa, I mean, you can even play around with the letters and get Satan. So, Gertrudis in Santa Gertrudis in Hebrew gematria equals 807, which matches Nineveh. I had mentioned that earlier. Forgot what it matched already, but that's already something I brought up. Santa in Hebrew gematria equals 232 and matches Hermit and Memphis, which I find interesting because Memphis is in Egypt. I think I mentioned some stuff about that before. Gertrudis in Hebrew gematria equals 575. It matches Trumpet. In simple gematria, it equals 121, which matches Blood Sacrifice, Antichrist, and Second Coming. I thought that was actually kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's what it's going to be. Well, I mean, I guess, you know, not the Antichrist really, but, well, I mean, I guess that could be part of the story now, but
it is.
You know what I'm saying? That should be the next thing coming up, I guess, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
But Blood Sacrifice and His Second Coming, I mean, definitely sounds like it's fitting the story.
I think so.
I mean, trumpets, that's at the end of the world, too. I mean.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And, you know, this actual breed, it's funny because you keep going back into the origins of the breed. And so between 1923 and 1935, there was a bull named Monkey that was extensively used to basically fix the characteristics of the breed. And so it's now officially recognized that Monkey, the bull, basically all stock of Santa Gertrudis descends from this actual bull. And I thought Monkey was an interesting, because I think you have mentioned that Monkey is occulted. I don't know if that's correct or not.
I think so, yeah. The Shriners use them.
So, yeah. So I thought that stuck out to me.
I mean, I even find it interesting how, I mean, you got the word key in there already with monkey. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's only like, I do think when it comes to like man and men, probably, I mean, just breaking that. I mean, it has different meanings. You know, I think in occultism, that's a big difference. And like, you know, now you're changing it to an O. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it just... And a monkey is very, I guess, you know, kind of looked at as a lower human type thing. So, I mean, you know, I do wonder if like monkey or mon or man or men, this is all like a change or something like that. I think like... A
key.
Yeah. So I'm just can't think of the best way to say it. How do you say that? Zubine again?
Zubine, yeah.
Yeah, Zubine in Hebrew gematria equals 761. And that matches vaccine, matches Ivanka, matches mysticism. It also matches in simple gematria 82, which you will get Armageddon, Gateway, Minerva. I thought this was interesting. Nixium and Throat. Taurine in Hebrew gematria equals 435, what matches the God of Israel. And I included this because something matched Nightmare earlier in the show. Now this matches Elm Street. So I had to include that. Sorry, I lost my spot. I was trying to actually go up and see. Yeah, fuck, I lost my spot now. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Damn. I don't even see. Sorry. Shit. Oh. Yeah. So I included the Elm Street because, again, we had a Nightmare before up there. And then Taurine in simple gematria equals 88 again, which we got for Scotland. And that also matches Epstein and Trump. Window, which I do question if that's like in a, kind of with the Emperor card. And Bloodline in Cedarwood. Cedarwood is also used in the ritual. Mm-hmm. So Taurine does match 88, Cedarwood, Trump, Epstein, Scotland, Window. Again, that's kind of on the Emperor card and Bloodline.
And if you adhere to the Glen Rose as a derivative of Rosalind Glen in Scotland, you go back to the whole bloodline thing all over again. So, yeah. So just, and this is all discussed about signatures because I'm beating it to a dead horse. But so it was reared for beef, because it was heat tolerant. It could withstand a lot of the conditions down in South Texas, which is pretty harsh to say the least. But it was named after Saint Gertrude or Gertrude the Great or Santa Gertrudis. And she was a German Benedictine nun and a mystic from Helfta Monastery. Her feast day is November 16th, and she is considered one of the great mystics of the 13th century. She's a German saint, now known for interceding her powers in preparing for a good death and as a champion in saving souls from purgatory, which, again, if you're using St. Gertrudis Breed, you're championing saving souls from purgatory, and the Jews are waiting for their Messiah so that they can go into heaven and be with God. So.
Very good. You're done?
Yes. Sorry,
okay.
The plane started flying over, and I was like, right. Oh, no. Sorry about that.
It's all right. All right, so then I do have some slides. There was plenty of rabbit holes I could have gone down with this, but I wasn't about to waste time for probably nothing, which does suck. I don't know if and I'm not trying to brag, but even with the smiley face killers, this topic, when I start doing some of the business stuff, you could waste literally an hour going down rabbit holes to be this got me nowhere, or or to me it's I can't prove enough, so I'm not going to show it. You know what I'm saying? But there was a lot of kind of business connections with this family going off into other things, but some of the stuff I found interesting. That's right, I can change it here. They also own Ameritech, and that's a staffing place. I think you had heard of it too, actually. They do account clerking, receptionist, call center staff, bookkeeping, dispatcher, filing clerk, salesperson, and they do a whole bunch of different things. Jerome also was served 1975, chosen to serve as SGBI president. And that was, damn, this is too small. I can't tell what it says anymore. Let me go to the one in front of me. Yeah, that one was just showing that he was a former Texas A&M person. So he did go to A&M, and he was chosen to serve as SGBI president. And then I was looking him up because this is the father that has passed away, and now the son's running. You will see in this slide. Let me go to the next one. Over on the left, it is basically talking about him passing away. And over here on the bottom, I meant to put a box around it. Sorry, I didn't. Harold was a member of St. Mary Catholic Church of Plantersville, as well as Christ Our Light Catholic Church of Navasota. He was also a longtime member of Knights of Columbus and enjoyed dancing. Blah, blah, blah. And he's also buried in Caldwell Masonic Cemetery for Masons. So I found that kind of interesting to mention that the original owner, it was a Mason in the Knights of Columbus. So there we go.
Interesting. So this is the other ranch that I was talking about that possibly contributed to the 5 of the heifers that were shipped over. And these are Red Angus. They're not Santa Gertrudis breed. But just briefly, the Red Angus is just a breed that has its origins in the Aberdeen Angus breed, which originally was brought with the Vikings from Europe and introduced it into England and Scotland. And then I believe that when it was once in England, it was mixed in with their, I think it was shorthorn cattle, and that's where they got the black from. And then that's where they get the black Angus from. So that's where you have the deviation between red and black Angus. So I don't know if they did choose Red Angus or if they ultimately went with Santa Gertrudis. To me, if I was a betting man, I would have gone with Santa Gertrudis, but that's just my opinion. The other thing was I wanted to kind of pull in some news clips to show you that what they did is they flew in some rabbis from Israel, and they had them inspect the cows that they had selected, and I believe a total of 5 were selected. And once they were selected, they were, I believe, either taken to Glen Rose and raised there, or at Glen Rose they were inspected again and then shipped out. But when the rabbis came in and for the inspection, apparently that was also paid by the foundation for this Byron guy, that he raised all this money to kind of help find these red heifers, and then ultimately helped raise them and then ship them off. Apparently they got first class tickets, all kind, no expense, spared, and they were allowed to come and check it out. Now, one of the odd things is that you cannot ship cows into Israel. And if anybody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't ship cattle into Israel as livestock. So they had to ship them in as pets to go around the whole shipping cows into Israel. So that was also another expense as well. So, yeah. Because of this, it is said that, and then now we know that the Hamas spokesman has come out and said that the reason for the October 7th attacks were launched were because they had brought the red heifers in. So I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is the guy, Byron Stinson, that basically spearheaded this Boneh Israel, building Israel together, raised all this money. I believe it was like $500,000 total to ship, to bring in the rabbis and then to ship the cows. The heifers out to their location that they are now. So one thing that I found to be, I guess, of particular notice is that he kind of is basically saying, yes, I know that if we help with the red heifer sacrifice, it could bring in the Antichrist. But you shouldn't be wary of the Antichrist, because all this means is that Jesus is on his way as well. So it's almost like they bypass the whole the tribulation period, the whole Antichrist period, and it's okay because world peace is coming. I don't know. It just seems like, don't worry, it'll hurt at first, but just let me rip off the Band-Aid. I don't know. But yeah. So you have a lot of these Christian Zionists, what they are calling them, as being the, I guess, financiers of getting these heifers raised and then shipped over. And then you have a lot of these people kind of pushing that narrative onto people, saying, no, you're not understanding. We need to help the Jews. We need to help them get to the point where they can get to their Messiah. We had our Messiah, and don't worry, because the more we help them, our Messiah will come back as well. So it's kind of, I guess that's how they're viewing it. Mm-hmm. And then, so a little bit of the sacrifice itself is, so the requirements for the actual red heifer for being selected is that she has to be 3 years old. She has to be perfect redness. no, the presence of 2 or more hairs that are not red, she's completely disqualified. They said something about her hooves had to be red. I don't know anything about that. I've never seen red hooves on an animal, but maybe it's like a different color or something that I'm not aware of. Genetic modification and cloning greatly assisted in this goal. Some of the Christian Zionists were saying that this is representative of the blood of Christ. To me, it almost, and I think I mentioned this to you, which is, kind of off color, but it reminds me of menstruation. Whenever menstruation happens, you know that you're not pregnant. Whenever you deliver a baby, you end up bleeding for 40 days. And that's also to indicate that you were no longer pregnant. You were shedding, the lining of your uterus because you're no longer with child. During your natural cycle monthly, when you menstruate or when you come into menses, your body's telling you didn't get pregnant this month. So to me, the blood, the red, all that is indicative of, not being with child.
Which would go back to an
she's
empress,
free.
I guess. I mean, or, a virgin again,
I think so.
like we were talking about before.
Free of all physical blemish or defect, both internal and external, never been used or any kind of physical labor imposed upon her, only taken possession of when it reaches proper age. And that's supposedly Torah mandate. So they can't just pick up this heifer calf and then take it to Israel and raise it over there. No, they can only acquire the heifer when she is of 3 years of age. So according to the Mishnah, this is supposed to happen between the time frame of Passover and Pentecost, which is between late April and mid-May. And the red heifer is to be brought to the Mount of Olives opposite of the eastern gate of the Temple Mount. I think gate was one of your results for gematria.
Yes.
Here she's slaughtered by a ritually pure Kohen and sprinkles its blood in the direction of the temple 7 times. So ritually pure means in terms of their definition that that person has not come into contact with a human corpse and they've only eaten holy food. The Torah exclusive antidote to the impurity of coming in contact with the dead or a human corpse is through the purification of sprinkling this heifer's ashes upon yourself. So it is said that one must undergo this process before they could enter into the court of the Holy Temple. So, yeah.
You want me to, did you end up skipping me? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I did not. So the Kohen is a Hebrew word for priest.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, and it's used in the reference to the Aaronic priesthood or the Aaronites. Yeah.
When I heard you say 7 times, I was looking at a different 7 times, and that screwed me all up. Sorry.
Well, and I have some, and I have something else about 7 times too in a little bit after yours.
I do find this really interesting with these matches. You even mentioned something about like, you said gate or fish earlier. Cohen equals 113 again, which matches gate, fish, chokmah, and heifer. Aaronites equals 376 in Hebrew and matches occult and high priest. Aaronides equals 280 in Hebrew and matches nun and nightmare. Found that interesting how one's a high priest, one's a nun. You're back to the gate, the fish, and the heifer again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the 7 times that they, use with the sprinkling of the blood, to me, it's reminiscent. Remember, we did that episode with covering those occultists, the Lo who created the golem.
Yes.
I believe what it was said was that you were to walk around the figure 7 times, reciting a Kabbalistic formula, and it would bring it to life. And then in order to take away life, you would go in reverse, but it would be 7 times. And so it's interesting that they're using the names, they're using, again, 7 as a way for purification.
I know, and another thing, too, even with the letter Nun, which is N-U-N again, that is on the tarot death card, and the meaning for that would be like fruit or fish. So again, like you're even getting fish again, which matched, with gate. Yeah. Interesting stuff. And
so once the heifer is slaughtered, she's taken to the Mount of Olives, she's slaughtered. She's then burned on a pyre, and together with scarlet dyed wool, Ezov and cedar wood, and its ashes are then collected for use in a mixture with spring water. And it is still all occurring at the site of Mount Olives. And if you look onto the slide here, you'll see where the actual, you'll see there on the right-hand side where the red heifer will be sacrificed. And it basically is, an eye view of the temple itself. So it's kind of directly over, like you can look over the actual temple area.
And now I go. Pyre, it just, again, ran some numbers on this stuff. Found some interesting things. Pyre equals 64 in English and matches Israel, Zion, Musk, Thelema, Thumb, which I found that interesting with Thumb, because if you're in the OTO and you go through initiations, when it comes to signs and grips, you're actually going to realize how important or how often your thumb is used. And Joe Biden. Cedar in Hebrew equals 93, which matches home, omega, and bark. Mount Olive. Now, I found it like I didn't, only this way. I did run it other ways. Mount of Olives, whatever, how it can be used. There was some interesting matches, but this one I found just had, I don't know. It seemed to be going along with what I thought I was noticing. Mount Olive equals 146 in simple English, which matches Ivanka Trump, Let's Go Brandon, New Jerusalem, East Palestine, Truth Social, Prince of Wales, Serpent Bearer, which kind of made me think about Trump's speech when he's mentioned the serpent a few times, the snake. Cedarwood again equals 88 in simple English, and he equals Trump, Epstein, Scotland again. And what I thought was interesting is that cedarwood is associated with Jupiter, and cedar trees are from. What'd you say they are from again?
There's some here in Texas.
Yeah, no, it's called a genus juniper.
Juniperus. Yeah, juniperus.
Yeah, I found that interesting. Well, I didn't think I was going to be able to say it right. GENUS, JUNIPERUS. And I just found that interesting. How it's very it makes me think of Jupiter still. So yeah, and I even think something else that was interesting. Even when you go back to numbers, that 19, then 3, you have a 93 in there technically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That
is very interesting. And then going back to that passage of the ritual of the red heifer itself, and they tell that it goes on to describe how to do the ritual. And they mentioned Ezoph. And I had mentioned that to you. It kind of sounds like Azov to me.
Yes.
But that the Sepulgate translates the name Ezoph to hyssop, and that is an actual herb that you are familiar with.
Yes.
And so at least within the church itself, the Roman Catholic Church, growing up in the Roman Catholic Church, I know they use it in the water when they sprinkle people as you're attending Mass. And then there's also evidence that hyssop is also used medicinally as a form of penicillin. So, and penicillin is derived from moldy bread, but yeah, that it also assists with antibacterial properties. So the Israelites use Ezoph more regularly for other rituals than they had settled in Israel. But it is used for the ritual for cleansing and specifically for leprosy, which I found interesting because leprosy is, obviously a disease. And then the fact that it has antibacterial properties that they would know to use that for that. And they also use it to clean corpses, I guess, when they're burying or washing of the body. They also use it in the burning of the red heifer. Psalms talks about sprinkling of Ezoph, and it's used metaphorically to refer to purification of the heart.
You're done? Oh, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. In some English Bibles, the word is translated, I think you had said before, as Ezob. And I did think that, between the V and the B, I did find it interesting, like, because B, the change to B, made me thought of Beth, like I had mentioned earlier, that was on the magician card. I mean, that really could have nothing to do with it, but again, I did find it interesting how it was changing to a letter that I kind of pointed out earlier. Ezov in Hebrew gematria equals 1255, which matches White Horse, Great Wolf Lodge, and Skinwalkers. And then Ezov in simple gematria equals 68, which matches House, Hermes, SpaceX, Brandon, Easter, and Mar-a-Lago. Ezov in Hebrew gematria equals 557, which matches State of Israel and Glory. And Ezov equals 48 in simple and matches Blood and Fool. So wanted to include some of those. Some of the stuff that, why I even included a lot of it, in my opinion, and like, you know, I think both sides are just as screwed up, but when it comes to, I guess, politics, in my opinion, like, there was some things on here that I think, like, some of the matching, like, you know, blood sacrifice and children, you know, or those other things, I think some of those matches were actually kind of really weird. But, like, not, I'm just going to be honest, it seems like there was also a lot of Trump things, in my opinion. You know, and even some things even go back to Elon, in my opinion. Didn't get into that. But, and that's like a commonality. A lot of times when running numbers, I will see a lot of Elon and Trump things kind of like matching. So I guess that's kind of like, you know, again, I have no problem pointing at the left. It's just I do find it interesting with this situation that you do have a lot of Trump stuff. You know, again, if there's magic in numbers and in sounds, you know, it was like one person coming up with something for people to repeat and say over and over again to feed something else. I do question that, so I do wonder about things like that. Another thing I wanted to talk about with Hyssop, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I used to use that. And it was something, I'll be honest, when a lot of times when I did rituals, I would do ritual baths. And it was more of like a way of just to take time and meditate. And believe it or not, it only happened a few times. And it was never that I was contemplating anything bad. It was just like, you know, is it really worth me spending the rest of this time doing that for this? Like, that's kind of pathetic. But there has been a few times that even in the meditation, in the ritual bath, I'll be thinking about what I'm about to do. And I guess, you know, wherever that goes. And there's been times when I've gotten out and said, I'm not even doing it. You know, so, I mean, I'm sure it has its benefits in some ways as well. But, like, I would do that. And a lot of times I would actually use Hyssop. I would boil it, make like a tea out of it, and I would add a little bit to the water, and then like was it Himalayan salt or whatever. And I swear for some reason I think that the way I even found out about Hyssop is because I do think Crowley might actually at one point even like use this or use part of from Psalms. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than the snow. I'm almost positive he may have like said that before in his books and mentioned hyssop. So that could have been, honestly, I hate to say it, if that's where I got it from, you know, that's where I got it from. But I ended up looking into the whole kind of thing of the Bible, and I would use this whole part right here. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me happy to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out all mine iniquities. Create me in a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with thy free spirit. Then I will teach transgressors thy ways, and sinners shall be converted unto thee. Deliver me from the blood guiltness, O God, thou God of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of thy righteousness. O Lord, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall shew forth thy praise. I think I actually only went up to 12, but I used to go from I used to use a big chunk of that for myself. And like, I do know other people that not so much do this, but I did know other people that would use hyssop. But, you know, a lot of times they would almost actually, believe it or not, use like almost biblical things, you know, or, you know, to actually, to kind of like do banishing for a, I guess a bath or something to do with water, which is interesting. But I did want to include that like hyssop for sure, I do know is used as like, you know, banishing, you know, to kind of like cleanse yourself, maybe cleanse your tools, cleanse your space. So I found it interesting that it is used in there because I'm like, oh, that is definitely something that I have used myself. I think to the point to where I actually bought it in bulk because it was like a lot cheaper, and I think I'd get like a half a pound at a time. Yeah, because like I would, you know, use it for baths, or I would like, you know, teas, or I would actually like use it sometimes like as a base if I was mixing like different like oils, and then like maybe sometimes I'd get like the incense that are more of like a gum, you know, or a resin. And you kind of like dump oil on there, and it all kind of like turns into one big glop that sticks together, but will burn really long and smell really fucking strong if you're putting it on top of the charcoal, you know.
Is have an inclination to like a particular herb like mint or oregano or anything like that? I'm trying to envision it myself. That's why.
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you what the hell it smells like anymore. I mean, it's been years.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Thought it was maybe related to me. It looks like mint to me.
I will
it looks
say
like mint to me.
It didn't taste like it, but it would smell like tea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the smell of it was very deceiving. You're like, God damn, I can't even drink this. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, was another thing I used to use too. Believe it or not, people probably think I'm crazy. I would actually, there was a church that I could like walk to that was literally around the block from me, and they had holy water there. And I mean, I guess maybe the place was kind of busy, I guess, for a church. It was an older one, and it was beautiful inside. I was actually really impressed with the stuff inside that church, Catholic church. And they would have holy water, but like they had like this big gigantic thing that they would like fill up these cups and then hang them up on the sides. As you walk in, you can like put your fingers in it. So I guess like they had this like kind of like cooler, big, gigantic like jug thing. And I would just go in there with a bottle and fill it up. And what the fuck out? And I would take it home, and I would like actually throw some of that into my bath, or actually like use it to actually cleanse some of my shit. Oh, I was like, yo, I gotta be. And I remember one time I was texting somebody, and I was like, yo, I legit just walked into a church with a Salem's, Massachusetts hoodie on. I didn't even realize what I was wearing, with a pentagram on it, taking fucking holy water to go bring back to my house to do a ritual. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, yo, you can't write this shit. You can't make this shit up.
Know your audience. Know your audience. Man. No, not at all. That's funny. But yeah. No, I like that you included this, because I feel like the rituals that are used, whether it is for what you are doing or for the purification rituals that they are going to be doing for Jewish faith, or even for the Catholic Mass when they're throwing water on people, it's all the same. And so it almost seems like it's redundant for a reason, probably because it works, or probably because there is a reason for all that. So yeah.
Oh, we need a story time. One day I should do like fucking just random. I'd have to think that up. I probably could pull that off. Do a couple like random silly stories. Like nothing, like I could probably easily pull off like a fucking, like I hate to even like consider myself like I'm like Lon Milo Duquette. I mean, like if you read some of his stuff, I do actually think a lot of his shit is very deep, but I think he just sells it as fucking silly, stupid shit. But he has a lot of funny stories that like I look back now, and it's like even through the small, like, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 year career of like fucking around with this shit. You know, I have like a lot of things I can actually laugh at myself and be like, I cannot believe I did that. Or that just didn't work out well, or that just looks so silly. Yeah.
It looked better in my mind.
Yeah, I could probably do like a show where it would be just fucking dying laughing for like an hour from like just, you know, stupid little silly things I've done in the past.
That's awesome.
Or even just like mishaps that it's like, you know, I'm constantly like, you know, I could never get the incense in the, yeah, I use those charcoal ones fucking all the time. I would always knock the motherfucker over and burn the fucking like altar thing, and I have to go out and buy another one. And it was just like, yo, like, when's that gonna stop happening? I don't know, just silly shit like that. Yeah, just the mishaps of being a ceremonial magician.
The bloopers.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Tons. Oh yeah, for sure. Tons of them. All right. Do you have anything left? I'm sorry.
Nope. That's it.
Oh yeah,
for
that's
me.
right. That was it. Yeah, I ended it. Totally forgot. Yeah, it's just a really weird and interesting situation with this thing. Again, it can happen any day from the 22nd for 50 days on. It's my opinion. I think Lisa thinks the same thing. I don't think like they're going to be like, oh, hey, next Friday we're going to kill her. I think it's just going to be like, oh, the Red Heifer has been sacrificed. Because I do think they also possibly worry about some sort of religious attack.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. This could get interesting. I do find it like, is it going to be about as well known as like what's going on with it now? You know what I'm saying? Like some people, I guess, you know, I would probably say people that are listening to my show or these types of shows might already have an idea of this. But I really do think this topic for an average motherfucker, they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Because it's not even like you kind of have to like, for my opinion, you have to Google it to really even find something new. It's not like you're like hearing about it. Or it's popping up like on the internet as like a news advertisement. You know, you kind of have, that's what I've had to do was just Google it to see if anything new's been said.
Right.
And
I think also they basically say, oh, Texas helped and Texas did this for Israel and Israel's going to get the Red Heifer and they've been looking for it all this time. And then if you subscribe to the pro-Palestinian, you say, oh my God, they're going to destroy our mosque. And that's all you know. You're not even hearing about the breed. You're not hearing about the genetics. You're not hearing about the cloning, the modification, all of the money that went into the IVF programs and stuff like that, and how it kind of has been astroturfed from the jump. So that was kind of my angle, bringing light to that.
And then I just wonder, like, if when it happens, is it going to be just as quiet as, you know what I'm saying? Or is that going to all of a sudden just be like, oh my God. Yeah. You know what I'm saying, or is it just going to be about as popular as the other stuff that we've seen? Do
you think it's going to be anticlimactic?
Yeah. I'm really wondering, like, is that what's really going to happen? 2 weeks from now, we're going to be like, oh wow, look at that, and like nothing on the news, nobody doing anything, nothing's popping off. We're just going to be like, oh, okay,
right.
Like I don't even know what to expect. That's what I want to happen.
Right.
You know
right. But I think if any. My opinion, I don't know anything, not fortune teller, but I think if anything is going to happen, it's going to be, the pro-Palestinians or pro-Muslims that are going to try to prevent the sacrifice because they don't want their mosque gone. And that's going to be more of the event than the actual sacrificing of the heifer.
One thing, what I find interesting with this too is like, could they be looking at us as being a problem since we're the one that fucking gave it to them?
Yes, that's exactly.
And like, is that going to be like, oh, this is why so and so just fucking blew up and fucking bumfuck out of nowhere? You know what I'm saying?
This is why.
Oh, because they just slaughtered this cow that since nobody's been paying attention, came from Texas. And that's,
and I was like,
that's why we're in this war with them now.
It came from here. Do not.
That's why we're dropping bombs too now.
Oh my God. Yeah. No.
We got to get in on the build back better somehow,
Somehow. That's true.
Got to get some of our bulldozers over there with them.
Yeah.
Fuck.
That's funny. But.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, exactly. Dang, nobody knows shit. Who knows what's going to happen?
Correct.
Yeah.
I agree.
But yeah, very interesting. Again, for me, I thought the number stuff was weird. I think some of it definitely was like, wow, that's matching. But thank you everybody who jumped in on the chat too. There was a lot of people in there. Sorry that unfortunately when I do shows like this, I can't always like keep minding the chat. I'd like to try as much as I can, but if I gotta like read my own stuff, kind of pay attention, it's a little hard. But try my best. But thank you all for jumping on too. There was a lot of you, and I kind of just was like spur of the moment. I even asked Lisa, I was like, yo, you okay with going live this morning? So yeah, I'm gonna leave this up maybe for a day or two, and then I'm gonna take it down. So this like really was just for kind of like, you know, the fans on YouTube and whatever live platforms. This is the first time. I don't know if it's working correctly. I really didn't want to try to look at it, but if it did work, going forward, I'm gonna try again next time anyway. But going forward, I should hopefully be streaming to BitChute live as well. They have live stream option. I threw the stuff in there. I don't know if it's working or not, but I'll find out afterwards. But for sure, start checking out BitChute. That will have live stream. You also still got Rumble. You still got Twitter. You still got Twitch. The Occult Rejects on Facebook live and YouTube. So technically, yeah, I think I'm going to like 7 places at once right now, actually. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So yeah, check that out if you do have BitChute. Hopefully that will get up and running if it, like I said, isn't already. Yeah, so this will be only up probably on YouTube for a few days, and I'll take it down, and this will just probably go in the rotation. If they would have probably done it already, I would have left it out, but, you know, who knows? You know, might have to add to it or something.
We'll find out.
Yeah, you guys might get like the unedited version where we like add another half hour to it and then re-drop it.
From coughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a plane flying.
We're like,
over.
oh shit, they finally did it, and let's add this and this and this. And man, I don't know. Just you never know what could happen. So the first, I guess, unedited version if nothing happens anytime soon. Yeah, and for the people live also that haven't jumped off yet, if you're still listening before we signed off, Friday, I think, was that 1 o'clock? I could be wrong, 1 or 1:30, somewhere around there. We will be going live doing, this is part 3 now, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. We were supposed to do it, and then we postponed. This will be part 3 of the Smiley Face Killers. So catch that, because part 4, I don't think I'm going to do live. And there's reasons for that, because I actually want people to have to wait and actually like watch the whole thing, because we will leave some of the victims behind. And in that last episode, we will be kind of going into some maybe weird, wild theories of how like what could be going on, or some of the parts of the machine, you know, parts of the beast that's moving with this. And I do think some of them might have some really interesting merit, or something to really think about. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But that one I don't think we'll do live. But definitely this one coming up. And, for that one, we will have some interesting stuff to add that I guess maybe not everybody could, because we have also been talking to Randy's sister, and we're going to be talking to her again today. She's been very nice to talk to us about certain things. And there has been actually, from talking to her, there has been a few things that actually have made me think, like, damn, like, that makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And it's just like these small little things that it's just like, I don't know, man. So definitely have some interesting things to add, thanks to her. And she's been doing a pretty good job, I think, even trying to, show people what's going on with the Smiley Face Killers, not just her brother as well, Mm-hmm. So check that out for Friday. And, that's the end of this show. And I guess until the next one, again, thank you, everybody in the chat. That's what's up. Everybody be well. Later.